Hello and welcome to another episode of Creature Club. I am one of your hosts, Mikey DC, and with me, as usual, is Daniel.
Hello.
This is a show where we talk about the monsters in the 5th edition Monster Manual, and we go into detail about real-life history, the history in the game, and then we talk about it and how we'd use it in our own games, and talk about the stat block and all that stuff. I think one day we'll kind of come up with like an intro that's a bit easier to say than that, but right now we don't have it.
I'm sorry, we won't.
A lot of shows seem to have like a snappy intro, like, yeah, we're Creature Club and we do this.
Let
That's
me just
it.
walk you through everything we do every time. God damn it.
Yes, God. I think we're on episode like 40 something now. I think it's a bit too late for that. Yeah. Here's a word of advice for anyone who wants to start out a podcast. Come up with a snappy slogan on episode 1. It's much better that way. Anyway, I'm digressing. We're going to talk about more demons. Let's just get into it. I am on a tight schedule right now.
Yeah,
I'm in work at I'm in work in an hour, so
so we got to get this shit over with. All right.
Yes.
So this week we are talking about the Vrock. The Vrock is a sort of a humanoid vulture. It's incorporates elements of the two beasts. It is humanoid in that it has 2 arms and 2 legs, but it tends to kind of traipse around on its 2 legs and its 2 long taloned claws. And then it has 2 big black wings to cart it around. It's not unlike a lot of the other demons we've talked about in terms of having wings, but unlike a lot of those other creatures, its wings are clearly functional. They would appear to lift the creature properly, unlike, say, the Nalfeshni or the Shadow Demon, whose wings are more indicative of its ability to fly, but don't actually give it that ability.
Yeah. Even though it's funny with the Shadow Demon I mentioned on the last episode, but for people not listening, the fly speed on the Shadow Demon isn't a hover speed, so it uses its wings to fly.
Yeah, exactly. Or it doesn't act like a ghost, basically. Like it can't hover in place, which is very unusual for an incorporeal creature. Vrocks are dull-witted, capricious fiends that live only to create pain and carnage. A Vrock resembles a giant hybrid of humanoid and vulture, as in its gnarled, bestial body and broad wings stinking of offal. Cool.
Cool.
Very cool, thank you. Vrocks... Nothing.
Oh my god, what is going on over there?
My entire leg just fell off, it's fine. Vrocks gobble humanoid flesh whenever they can, stunning potential prey with an ear-splitting shriek, then swooping down to attack with beak and claw. Vrocks can shake their wings like they shake it. Racing clouds of top.
How many shake-its is that?
Just like Outcast, interestingly enough. Coveting pretty things, Vrocks turn against each other for the chance to lay claim to cheap jewelry or ornamental stones. Despite their love of treasure, Vrocks are difficult to bribe, seeing no reason to bargain when they can simply take what they want from a would-be bargainer's corpse. That's a mixed opportunity.
So they're like birds that like shiny things, kind of like a magpie kind of thing.
It's funny, like they're vulture-like, but they emulate magpies in their desire for shiny things.
Yes.
And I suppose in that vein, we do have the basis of the creature. There isn't any direct mythological reference that they refer to. Instead, it is a case of it's one of those things of like, what's a demon? It's a vulture, but it looks weird. Yeah, grand, done.
Yep, next one.
So I'll give you the historical D&D rules very briefly. The historical D&D context very briefly. So it appeared first in Eldritch Wizardry, which, as we know, is when demons were first introduced into the game. So they've been around for a long time. Appeared again in 1st edition. They appeared again in the Immortal Rules set, and then 2nd, 3rd, 3.5, and 4th. In terms of all their appearances there's a lot of very straightforward stuff. There is one very interesting version that we will talk about later, which is in Dungeon Magazine number 25, there was a campaign called Showdown at Sundown, which has in it an ancient Vrock known as the Beast. And we will talk about that later because that adventure is very cool and I want to share it with people.
But yes, the adventure does sound very cool. You were telling me a little bit beforehand.
Yeah, I was. Sorry, it is called the Standing Stones of Sundown, just to get the name correct.
Okay. Showdown at Sundown does sound good, though.
Honestly,
I do like that name.
I might change the name when I run it to something that I like more. Okay.
Yeah, I thought you were just going like, honestly, I might change a name right now on the wiki.
Now, I'm just going to edit this 38-year-old PDF. Hang on, give me a second. Just
no one's gonna
for a second.
No one's going to notice.
Hey, Jeremy, was this adventure always called? Because I would have sworn. Oh, that's
Wait
funny.
a second. Daniel? Curse you, creature club!
Oh, damn you, yeah. I've done that joke a lot at our table. Damn you, Crawford. That's one of my favorite ones. Sorry. Yeah, that's its history in D&D, because by coincidence, there's a couple of occasions whereby rules in 5th edition have emulated house rules or homebrewed spells that I've written. And so the joke we have is that Jeremy Crawford is stealing my notes. So,
yes. Oh, yeah. But maybe he is.
But the jury's still out. I haven't concluded my investigation. So if you're listening, Jeremy, I will find out. Okay.
Wow.
Let's move on before I actually get sued for like threatening a public figure, because
I guess so. Yeah. Like, you're not threatening. You're just no one listens to the show anyway.
The
Whatever.
truth will be revealed. Yeah, that's true.
But actually, while we're on the subject, are all these demons so far that showed up? Have they been like? Did they also all show up in Eldritch Wizardry? Is it just the same team of demons every time?
I really want to say yes, but I could be wrong. So why don't you let me check very quickly and I'll find out. So I'll tell you. So we can go back in now if you like, Mikey.
Yes.
Sorry. So the short answer. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say we can pretend that you actually just instantly came up with the answer.
Please, yeah, I'm really smart. No, so basically the short answer is no. The Barlgur and the Casmi, for example, are actually both from Lost Caverns of Sojkanth, which is again one of those modules that comes up a lot. It's one of those early ones that we keep mentioning.
Yeah.
These honestly, these early modules are probably worth investing in, just to fucking steal all their ideas.
Yeah, well, they're all kind of archived somewhere, or you can buy them somewhere.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so let's jump in.
Let's do it, man. Let's meat and potatoes.
Okay.
Alrighty, so we got a Vrock. He is they are a large fiend, demon, chaotic evil, armor class 15, natural armor, hit points 104, or 11d10s, or 11d10 plus 44, has a speed of 40 feet.
Sorry, I think your accent just came out there a bit, Mikey. Far too far.
It is far too far. Oh man, I have the weirdest accent, man. It is, and I keep. Yeah, but I keep forgetting that I have a accent over here in this country full of Americans, because they're like
Texans.
Yeah, like, what are you talking about? Like, oh, sorry. Sorry. I said someone asked me what time it was, and I was like, it's 9:30, and like, what? Like, oh, sorry, 9:30. You yank.
Wait, seriously, they don't have? That's so weird. I wouldn't even thought 9:30 would be like. I guess 9:30 you could be like, wait, you mean like 4:50? Like what?
Yeah, it's so strange. Anyway, sorry. Speed 40, fly speed of 60 feet. Has a strength of 17, a dex of 15, a con of 18, an intelligence of 8, wisdom 13, charisma 8. Sorry, I went 14 news reader.
0 points.
Saving throws.
Sorry, please continue. That's a Eurovision reference for all our American listeners.
Eurovision, god damn it. Saving throws, dex +5, wisdom +4, charisma +2. Damage resistances, cold, fire, lightning, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical weapons. Yeah, we know it, guys. It's a demon. It's, old news there. Tell us something new. Damage immunities,
Tell
poison.
Me I don't know.
Nice one, man. Conditioned immunities, poisoned.
Yeah.
Senses, dark vision. Dark vision 120 feet. Passive perception 11.
Yep.
Languages abyssal and telepathy 120 feet. Yes, first time. Challenge rating 6 or 2,300 experience points. for you to spend in whatever way you want.
Yeah.
It's got a magic resistance. The Vrock has advantage on saving throws and spells. Sorry, the Vrock has advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. So, a handy one to have. Most demons have that. Just, it does good against spells and other stuff when it uses a saving throw. Daniel, do you want to do the actions?
Yes, I will. Actions. Multi-attack. The Vrock makes 2 attacks, one with its beak and one with its talons. That's like what we covered before when it said when it dives on people, it attacks with its beak and claws. Its beak is a melee weapon attack, as you might expect. +6 to hit, reach 5 feet, 1 target. Hit 2d6 +3, or an average of 10 piercing damage. Next up we got the talons, another melee weapon attack, another +6 to hit, and another 5-foot reach. And again, targeting 1 target, as we'd expect. Hit 2d10 +3 slashing damage, or an average of 14. So talons collectively are a little stronger than the beak on its own. Next up we have the spores we mentioned, which just honestly, the idea of anything dropping spores on you, I'm just like, oh, that's bad. That's you know what I mean? I'd be like, I'm retiring. This is the last adventure.
Yeah.
A 15-foot radius cloud of toxic spores extends out from the Vrock. The spores spread around corners. I don't know why. I always find that distinction so funny. Just the idea that the party are like, it's okay, we can run around this corner, and then they just look, no!
Gets that corner. Oh, no!
I don't know. I just find that so funny. Each creature in that area must succeed on a DC 14 Constitution saving throw or become poisoned. While poisoned in this way, a target takes 1d10 or 5 on average poison damage at the start of each of its turns. A target can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on its successful save. Emptying a vial of holy water on the target also ends the effect on it. That's kind of cool. I like
holy water!
That'll do the trick. He's just like throw it at someone. Shatters over.
Oh wow! It actually did the trick.
Oh wow! I was kidding, but yeah. And then its last power, stunning screech once per day. The Vrock emits a horrific screech. Each creature within 20 feet of it that can hear it and that isn't a demon must succeed on a DC 14 Constitution saving throw or be stunned until the end of the Vrock's next turn. So that's quite good.
Yes. So, interesting stuff going on with this one. A lot of it's 2 kind of, special abilities.
Yeah.
It can fly, and it's got, got 2 attacks, and it's got a magical resistance. It has a lot of things it can do,
Yes.
It's, what do you think of the stat block, Dan?
I think it is... I think I like it. I feel like it would be a really... I feel like it would be a nice encounter as part of a set of encounters during, say, a dungeon. I don't know necessarily if I think it's interesting enough to be a boss monster, but I do like the idea that the party encounter this thing on its own, and it's sort of, I think in that context, I think it's a good monster. It's got like, it doesn't feel like it has too complicated a set of abilities. It has like basically what it like, its kind of pattern as such is stay in the air. Why wouldn't it do that? Use its multi-attack to hit people with its beak and talons, unless it can use either its stunning screech or its spores, because those are a little more powerful and generally will tend to damage a larger group of people. And in that same vein, I think it's great as a solo enemy because it does have those AoE attacks that you really do need your kind of solo bosses to have, or even your solo mini bosses to have. So just that it isn't a case of like he's constantly multi-attacking they're constantly multi-attacking like the barbarian or whoever's in their way, that occasionally they throw out like this screech or these spores, and then like, oh, the maybe the warlock starts taking a bit of damage, and that mixes up the fight a little bit and stuff like that.
Yeah, to go with the video game terms, it's I would see it more of a mini boss than a boss.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's just go on to the next part.
Absolutely. Drop them in the Matrix room.
Woo! That was kind of me dropping into the time vortex.
I like that. Great use of the Doppler effect.
Yes.
Okay, so we kind of already mentioned it there. Yeah, so I think we can kind of agree that the Vrock on its own against a level 6 party, it's got enough health and resistances that it'll probably last an okay amount of time. The magic weapons of the party will be pretty important, and so will any holy men they have, any radiant or even necrotic damage, actually. So there's a good mix, but obviously a lot of the more straightforward damage dealers like the fire bolts and things like that, they're not going to necessarily deal as much. And of course it has the magic resistance, which means it's a lot harder to reliably use spells to deal with it, which means you're going to kind of be relying on the rogue, the ranger, and the fighter, the sort of the weapons guys. And in that case, you're really going to want them to have magic weapons, because otherwise this thing effectively has 200 health, which is a lot.
Yeah. Because it has wings, you can see it like flying down at you, doing its beak and talons attack, staying down there, and then flying back up again. So maybe your fighter or your non-ranged guys are just, like your fighter and your rogue are just not really doing as much damage as they usually do because it's staying in the air, which is the classic fighter dilemma going on.
Throwing javelins that they got from the fucking starting equipment. I've used my 2 javelins, guys. I haven't got anything else. I'll go over.
The portal that they come out of at the start of their life is
basically.
It's like, oh, don't forget your javelins, dear.
Don't forget your 2 free javelins. Yeah, like I do think, like, as an enemy, like I think it does a fun thing where like it can kind of like, it'll maybe focus down individual members, and then it might occasionally like jump over the party and like drop spores on them and stuff like that. So it might go between kind of attacking one person and then jumping and moving around a bit.
Yeah.
That's
pretty cool. That's almost like phases in a boss fight. That's
exactly.
Kind of like different moments where, oh, it's in the air now, it's going to do its range attack. Get ready to defend against that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when it flies down, like, now do the damage against them. You know, it's very video gaming.
That's true. Yeah. I think we can agree that he's a pretty good level 6 mini boss, or even, I suppose, you could use him as a boss for a level 6 party if he has help. I think on his own, I suppose even in fairness, on his own against level 6 party, he still does have that good amount of health, but I think the issue he's going to encounter as a solo kind of like boss, as opposed to, because I think a mini boss can just do the thing where they jump around and hit people, and like the fighter's like, boy, I sure took a lot of damage in that fight, and you're like, it's your job. Whereas like I feel like the boss has to do a bit more like sort of weird stuff. I think the Vrock can be your boss fight if they get some minions who can do other stuff for them, because I think, as I said, the Vrock has a very simple like combat loop, or combat rotation is the preferred term in something. But yeah, the idea of a combat rotation for the Vrock being fly around, hit people with your beak and talons, use your spores when you have them, use your screech when a lot of people are within 20 feet, or just to get out of somewhere. So like that's a very straightforward kind of set of rules. And so what you want to add to that is you want to maybe have archers or even spellcasters allied with the Vrock, who can either benefit the Vrock by casting spells on it that make it stronger, or just throw out spells at the party that mix up the fight for them. Especially, for example, I think a really natural fit is spells that create like hazardous environments, like Entangle or even Black Tentacles. Both be kind of cool enemy spells to throw down to mix up, because like, you want movement and stuff like that.
And you can kind of reskin them as like more demonic. So
yeah, that's true.
Like, maybe like you, instead of black tentacles, just like, demonic arms of like, low level demons that come out and try and drag you and like keep you there, or try and drag you into hell. Just kind of, that's just for flavor.
Yeah.
I had an idea for a encounter with this. I feel like with a lot of flying guys, I like to make the arena like kind of platforms, or like a thin bridge, basically, like where your movement is very hindered, but it can still fly around, no problem. So it's like it's even more of a handicap against you.
Yeah.
So let's say if it was like a tight bridge, we'll say that, and this Vrock is there, and he's flying around attacking you, or it's like a second Vrock or whatever, and you guys are high enough level. You're fighting him, and if you fall down the bridge into like the bottom of this little tomb, maybe you can have like a swarm of Dretch, a swarm of Main, a swarm of something low level. I was thinking back to our crawling claw episode, and we were thinking something similar with like using the crawling claw as a trap monster.
Yeah,
had maybe like a swarm of crawling claws that try to like grab onto you, and they're not really anything, but they might either grapple you and keep you down there so you won't be able to get back up into the fight, or do like a small bit of damage against you, just chip damage.
Chip damage, just like little bits and pieces.
Yeah, so you would fall, take a bit of damage for falling, and then either be grappled or a tiny bit of damage before you climb back up and fight this Vrock again.
That takes a bit of time and stuff like that. Like
yeah, exactly.
I like that.
So it's either like a small bridge or like platforms where you have to jump across. So
yeah. Or like the roof of a building, if we're talking about kind of the idea of it being like a boss, that it's like maybe a tower or some like a abandoned keep that you've fought your way through, and now you're kind of at the top floor and you've got to deal with this big bastard and all his friends.
Yeah, I like the idea of giving this guy a spear as well. I think you look cool with that.
Yeah. Well, actually, isn't that the gargoyles, the bell tower gargoyles?
Kind of looks like them. Yeah, I guess so.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, just a thought.
Yeah, but maybe we're kind of going on to the devil's kind of side, because they seem to have a lot of weapons.
That's fair, yeah. I mean, the Balor has weapons, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them are kind of unarmed and rely on like magic. I guess the Marilith and the Balor are both pretty armed. The Marilith is probably the most armed themed. Like, she has so many longswords.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's fair. Well, it's something you consider anyway. I don't think it's totally like wrong for it to have a spear. I think that could be an interesting replacement for the talons, or even actually no. You know what I think would be better is if you replace the beak. So if you replace the beak with like an attack that maybe dealt similar damage, maybe a little more, maybe, and a spear in two hands, if I recall correctly, is a D8. So it would be, because it's a big spear, because it's a large creature, it would be 2D8. So it would be a little more damage than the beak is at the moment, but still less damage than the talons. But then you could say, because it's a spear, they have reach. And now suddenly it has two attacks that have different reaches, and that's immediately a tactical consideration. And even from the point of view of opportunity attacks, it's a more valuable resource, and it gives the demon new abilities and a new way to affect the battlefield. I actually agree with that, Mikey. I think that's a really great way to very slightly modify it. But make it a little more tactical as a fight. And then, of course, the best part of it is that if you want, you can be like, well, now the spear is loot.
Exactly. I have a cool magic spear. Because obviously, like, if you had a spear, the spear is classically a weapon for people who don't want to get hit, or like want to have a reach and attack you from a bit further away than if they're using a sword. So it'll be very funny to see this Vrock go at you with a spear and then go at you further with its beak, just to get closer. Like, what's the point of the spear then if you're using your beak as well? Yeah,
exactly. Whereas like talons and spear almost make more sense, because you can imagine it like launching itself at the party, and like it attacks like the frontliners, like the paladin with its talons, and then it kind of stabs at like the rogue or the wizard with its spear at the same time. And they're like, ugh. Because suddenly it's able to reach back and stuff like that.
Yeah, they would like stab you with a spear and then maybe kind of swing around and hit you with its like talons on its legs, and then like fly back up into the air again. It just kind of makes a bit more sense. But yeah, sorry,
I like that.
I didn't actually have anything there, but yeah, a weapon might be cool to put on this guy.
No, I like that. I like that as a very simple change. That also, I suppose there's a cool idea where like, one of the things I like about the idea of like saying this Vrock has a spear, right? Like, that's a great way to immediately make the Vrock different, especially if they are, for example, a boss or a mini boss in your dungeon or adventure or whatever you're doing. That like you say, well, it's not just a Vrock, it's a Vrock with a spear, and I'll give it like a name, and now it's suddenly like a little more of a character, And then of course, if you say, well, the spear is loot, and when the party win, the spear lets them, I don't know, do something. We haven't monster hunted it yet, but maybe we will with that spear. But yeah, the idea of like, it's a little special, and it gives them some benefit, and that like changes how they remember that fight, because they took this spear from the beast afterwards and stuff like that.
Yeah. Let's see, what else do we got here?
I've got the adventure.
Yeah, let's go with the adventure. Let's have a look at that.
Cool. Wow, this is weird. Sorry,
What?
I'm just reading the explanation. So, the Standing Stones of Sundown is what the adventure is called. It's by someone called Paul May, and it says at the start. This is weird. Paul May is studying for a PhD in plasma chemistry at the University of Bristol and has been playing the AD&D game for over 8 years. Paul writes, I live close to both Stonehenge and Avebury, famous for its stone circle and white horse chalk mark. While visiting them, I had the idea to write a scenario based on what these mysterious relics might mean. So this guy, like, he's not an adventure writer. He's like a PhD student, basically, who like wrote this adventure and sent it into the magazine. I just thought that was cool.
Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. And that's a great example of being inspired by the world around you. Just like, hey, what if Stonehenge was... no one knows.
Yeah. What if no one knows?
No one knows who they were or what they were doing.
The Druids.
God. Sorry, I didn't even like... fucking hell. Sorry. Okay, so... Very briefly, I'll run you through the adventure Standing Stones of Sundown, and we'll get to the important part, which is what does this have to do with Vrocks? The Standing Stones of Sundown, there's a village called Sundown, and there is a circle of 10 standing stones around one slightly larger one. And the explanation for this adventure basically says a group of 10 shamans, because a Vrock was running wild across the villages, they banded together and collectively froze the Vrock in stone, but also had to freeze themselves in stone to do it. So effectively, all of them are like now frozen in stone. They're basically petrified. For the purposes of the video game, they are all under the petrification spell. But it's a little different. It explains later in the adventure that it's a little different, but fundamentally they are petrified. There's a mage in town who kind of basically starts looking into the stones and then realizes that they may have been people who were turned into stone, although his details are like he basically gets the details wrong. He doesn't understand that they're shamans trapping a demon. He thinks they're something else, but he fundamentally thinks, oh, they're people who I can free, and so he basically gets the ability to depetrify. He finds a ring of depetrification and tries to use it to release one of the people at this of the stone circle. But when he does that, he breaks the magic spell, so the demon is also let free. So the adventure is now all about what's going on, where this Vrock has now like broken free of its prison, and the people who like let it free have been killed by this demon when it was released, so no one has any idea what's going on. The villagers have just noticed that their circle of standing stones is now different, and they think it's a bad omen, so they're trying to like appease the spirits, and like they're doing their own ritual. And so it's all about sort of this interaction between, there's this mystery and there's this very powerful demon kind of on the outskirts of town, and it has all these interesting, like slightly different Vrock powers and how it interacts with the adventure. It's actually really cool. I really, really like it.
Yeah.
And it has like stuff like, it has like a Stone's Origin Rumors D8 table, so that when the party start asking questions, you can roll on the table and this is what they learn. And things like that. Like it has all these like cool little like boxes about like how the party learn different things. Like there's a D8 table for village rumors, and like, yeah, it's actually, I would really recommend looking at this adventure. It's pretty cool. I really do like it.
What's it called again?
It's called The Standing Stones of Sundown.
Standing Stones.
And you can find
Standing Stones of Sundown.
Yes, I try saying that 3 times real fast. And you can find it in Dungeon Magazine number 25. Can't believe you did it. There's a really cool thing which I actually really like, and it's the kind of thing that I absolutely love, where basically the party can find the same ring that the mage had, and they can actually free all of the shamans who have been trapped in stone, and it has different descriptions for how each of them react when they're released. And so it's just like, it seems really cool, like the idea that like you can release these figures, and when you do, like they will have like their own outlook on the world. And like the game, like the adventure sets up like these people have been frozen for thousands of years, and that's just so insane. Like just the idea of imagine that, you're just like, wait, what's going on?
Who are you? It's interesting how they decide to pick a Vrock as the villain of it, where it seems like there can be a lot, like there's a lot of other demons who are kind of stealthy, like the let's take for example like the shadow demon or something, or I mean, like that's not as good as an example, but Who else was stealthy again? Sorry, I'm kind of blanky, but I remember someone else was like a bit more stealthy than
the Barl Gura has stealth as a skill, I believe, or something.
Oh yeah,
does he?
Yeah,
he does. Yeah,
it does. Yeah,
it's the ambushes thing.
But either way, like I'm kind of. It's interesting how like they chose Vrock, but probably just because it could honestly just be the Vrock was cool, so just take that one.
I can't say what's interesting about this thing is that like I think the reason they chose the Vrock is because the Vrock famously was never that smart. It always had like a negative int or like a negative int mod, like it always had like 8 intelligence. So I think the idea is that they wanted a demon who was powerful and dangerous, but wasn't smart enough to do like the perfect plan, because that would be much harder for the PCs to interact with. Whereas like if the creature is like kind of stupid, then it will make mistakes, and the party can rely on those mistakes to like uncover the leads and things like that, which is kind of a valuable asset for them. So it's pretty cool. It's not a normal rock; it's an ancient rock, and we learned that these ancient rocks were more powerful, but also more independent, and as a result, they were wiped out while this rock was frozen in stone, and he is now the last of his kind. And so it gives him some interesting, unique powers, like he can shape change, and he has the ability to charm people and stuff like that. But all this is only set up so that you can interact with the adventure in interesting ways. It's a very cool adventure, and I really like it.
I'll definitely give it a read myself.
I would recommend it. It even gives that cool thing where it tells you what happens if the party fail, which is my favorite thing, where it says like if the party don't succeed in stopping the Vrock, this is what happens. And what's cool about it is like basically what happens is the Vrock, because it's this ancient like kind of like previous race of Vrock that doesn't exist, when it returns to the abyss, it finds it's the last of its kind, and as a result it's the most powerful Vrock in existence, and so it takes over all Vrocks and like becomes like one of the most powerful creatures of the outer planes, and it's like, and now the PCs have that as an enemy, and it's like, oh dear.
What kind of abilities would we give the ancient Vrock other than the charm, person, and polymorph? Like, how can we make it a lot more powerful than this Vrock right here that we have?
So it has a really scary sounding power that I think makes more sense in the context of AD&D, but I will read it out verbatim just to give us a bit of context. Ancient Vrocks were slightly more powerful than their common kin and possessed 2 9th level spells each. These spells take Jazzpa 2 rounds to cast because of his limited intelligence, so they are almost never used in direct combat unless the foe is helpless. Based on that, I actually don't know the rules for casting magic in AD&D, but I would assume, because it says the fact that it takes 2 rounds and they're never used in combat as a result, I assume what we're learning there is that like the rules for concentration were much less forgiving, and so the idea of casting a 9th level spell over 2 rounds was not as powerful. There's also just the fact that like the way rules worked and things like was a little different, so really what we're saying is that like twice per day this ancient rock can channel very powerful magic, but there are limitations about how they can do that. It describes how its favorites are the energy drain, because they delight in the creation of a juju zombie that will cause further havoc, and that actually their shape change spell is based on it's like their shape change is more like a polymorph. So like when they shapeshift to blend into places, it's not an illusion. They actually change their entire body, which is interesting.
Okay, cool. I actually just looked up some AD&D. I'm pretty sure it's AD&D. Is second edition kind of around AD&D?
It's all similar.
It's all very similar, but it's basically, it's what you guys, it's similar to 5th edition at least anyway. You have Wish, you have Weird, you have Time Stop, you have Power Word Kill, kind of all that kind of stuff. Meteor Swarm is one of them. Gate, Foresight, Energy Drain, as you said. Glorious Transmutation, Elemental Aura, Crystal Brittle, Big B's Crushing Hand, Astral Spell. There's a lot of them. Yeah. Wow.
Some of the spells. So 9th level was a little. I think 9th level you've reached it faster. I think you might have actually gotten new spells every level instead of every second level. So that like a 9th level wizard had 9th level magic. Although I could be wrong. And by the way, when you read out second edition stuff, you're right. This is actually a second edition adventure, not AD&D. That was my mistake.
Gotcha.
So that's exactly the right list, basically. So in other words, it had access to those spells. You might ask, why doesn't it cast Wish? And the answer is, it's not very smart.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe maybe that's a different kind of magic. Maybe you gotta be like a smarter person.
Who can say?
I don't know.
Maybe you need to. You just need to be inventive enough to know to do it.
But yeah, so, I don't know. So he can stop time. It's a Vrock that can stop time.
The secret of the Vrock. Yeah, I would actually recommend people look up this adventure because I actually think it's very cool. I really like it, and I really would enjoy running it.
Yeah, Dungeon Magazine's all archived on Wizards, right?
I feel like it is. You can find it archived in a bunch of different places, basically.
Yeah, it's easy enough to find if you look it up.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'd recommend that. So that's one thing we can do. We can kind of have this ancient Vrock who's part of this whole conspiracy thing. We've already talked about how using it as a boss is interesting, and using it and giving it a spear. I really like that idea. I want to touch on one more thing from that adventure, just very briefly. So the Vrock in it has an item which is the Chalice of Plane Travel, which is basically a chalice that lets it travel between the abyss and the material plane, which is why it was such a threat, because it kept jumping back and forth and attacking villagers, and then when it got, when the church showed up to deal with it, it would just leave. And so in that vein, I like the idea of a Vrock, not necessarily the same Vrock as this, but I like the idea of a Vrock who has this item, right? This item that lets them travel between dimensions. And I think in that vein, the idea of it having like a cult, and that's where we have this kind of boss setup comes from.
Yeah.
I think in that vein, if we were using it as a kind of a cult leader, the thing I would keep in mind is it is not very smart. So having it take charge of races, either having it take charge of races who are also not smart, like say goblins or ogres, or alternatively having it take charge of more powerful, like races, like people with more intelligence who are kind of thinking about trying to use the Vrock for their own ends. So there's kind of that back and forth, because again, remember, the Vrock has that magpie instinct where it loves shiny things.
Yeah. Maybe it's the people or anything that is like in the cult that he forms, they just give him like shiny stuff, like gold and jewelry, and it has like almost a small dragon's hoard of stuff, but it's not even like gold. It's just shiny stuff.
Yeah, it's like
anything.
Trash, but it's shiny, and like because the Vrock doesn't have a comprehension of actual value, like it just wants shiny things.
So you can so when your party beats him, you have like I guess you have like a cash prize at the end.
Yeah.
Actually, a new car.
Yeah. And a new car. Actually, in that vein, because we know that the Vrock likes shiny things, there is an interesting argument to be made that they could have layers, like in the same vein that dragons have layers where they collect all the things they've stolen. And in that vein, we could give them lair actions. I like the idea that, for example, there are lair actions or stuff like that. Like, I like the idea. So we have the stunning screech once per day. So I don't necessarily know. Maybe the lair action. No, I don't think we interact with that. But I do like the idea that lair actions interact with the spores. So maybe like where the Vrock drops spores, like creatures spring up from the ground, like fungoid creatures spring up and like start attacking the party.
Yeah. Maybe the spores, actually you can switch it around a lot and use lots of different kinds of spores, I guess. Like I remember there was one that so what does this one do? It does poison, right?
Yeah, it does.
Maybe there's ones.
It does a poison damage over time.
I remember there was like a screeching like fungus in like Horde of the Dragon Queen or one of those.
Yeah.
And maybe you can use like its frightening screech, its stunning screech into those screaming fungus, or maybe there's like a burning fungus, like switch around the spores, or like kind of upgrade that spores for the ancient Vrock,
Yeah.
I like the idea as well that the villagers in town keep calling this thing like a wormling, because it's like a small it hoards, and it's like a small,
that is very
it kind
good,
of resembles
man.
a dragon,
That's very good.
Yeah, or no one has seen it because it stays in the darkness. All you
It
see
stays
is
in the
its
darkness,
wings.
and it's always high up, and it has wings, and they're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
fucking a black dragon has roosted nearby, so that's that's bad news for us.
Yeah, so your party shows up and you're like, "That's not a dragon at all." Like, what are you
I
doing,
brought my
bro?
sword
And
of
then-
dragon slaying. God damn.
yeah. So you beat it up, and then maybe that can, like, it's challenge rating 6. Yeah, maybe you can, upgrade yourself into a higher demon campaign that way or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that. That's cool. That's a really good idea, Mikey. I love stuff like that. I love stuff like, the people of the village just get it wrong because they're like, we're not fucking adventurers. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
No. Yeah.
That's very cool. I like that a lot. And in that same vein, I really like the idea that we have like Vrocks terrorizing villages by swooping down and attacking people. But again, to talk about like their demonic nature, like they can't step on holy ground, so like the church is unharmed and stuff like that, and people start like retreating to it at night. So like at night, the whole village like retreats into the church, and the doors are barred and things like that. So you like you have this like creepy abandoned village, and maybe we combine that, and we have this whole thing where like the Vrock, like its spores are like unsettling the earth and things like that, for like this kind of spooky like gothic campaign, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
I really like that wormling idea, Mikey. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, I like that's a cool idea. It's just like kind of came to my head because it's as you said, adventurers don't really know. Imagine finding this guy in like a clock tower, inside a clock tower, like Batman or something. That'll be fun to do.
Imagine if you were just Batman.
Imagine doing Batman. Go up to your DM next session, say, you know what, screw your game, let's do Batman. And
I'm doing Batman.
You do it.
In the vein of them being in an urban adventure, I like the idea of like, chasing them across rooftops because they have the shiny thing you want and they're just leaving with it because you've like injured them in the fight.
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
So that would be cool. I really like because of the Vrock, because of its attitude as being like slightly stupid, and it likes shiny things and it likes eating, and it's kind of instinctual, but it's still a demon with some powers. I really like it as a kind of an urban threat, especially as one that like people are very confused about and like don't know how to deal with.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
Yeah, maybe people all around the town are missing things, like someone's like, "Oh, my ring is gone, my priceless family heirloom," and then the king's like, "Oh, my crown's gone," and you're like, "What the hell is going on here?" So maybe it's kind of like a side adventure that's going on in your in one of your cities that you're kind of trying to investigate every once in a while. I guess.
Yeah,
that can be a bit of fun.
I come up with a couple of different ideas for the Vrock in kind of urban environments, and we've talked about an old adventure involving them, and we've talked about them as a mini boss. Excuse me, I just knocked my book there. What else do we think we'd like to use them as?
Do we have any ideas for monster hunting this monster?
I think you could have the wings be turned into a very interesting cloak that perhaps gives you resistance to poison damage, and basically gives you like dwarven resilience, so like resistance to poison damage and advantage on saving throws to avoid poison, and then maybe like once per day you can like as a reaction to being hit, you can spray spores at the person who just attacked you.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Definitely maybe like a downgraded version of this, or even just the same as it is. Actually, I wouldn't know how balanced it would be, but just a version of that spores definitely, I think.
I mean, yeah, I always think like one of the things Matt Colville said in one of his like videos where he talked about like giving his players like special powers or unique items. He always says like one of his favorite rules of thumb is that like it doesn't actually matter that much if you give them something that's really powerful, as long as you just say once per day. So like even if you said once per day you can do the spores ability, and that's really good, which I don't think it is, to be honest. But like even if you did, because it's once per day, it's like, yeah, sure, once per day you can do it. And like if you've more than one fight in a day, it's like suddenly it's like it becomes less and less relevant as the day drags on. I think you could say like straight up, it just gives you a like you can use the cloak as a once per day, use the spores ability of the Vrock. But But I'm only thinking from the point of view of like making it a little unique. That instead it's like it gives you the resistances, so it gives you some defensive opportunities, and then lets you, as a reaction to being hit, spray them with spores.
That is cool because I can picture like if you're getting hit with a weapon, then maybe you can hold up the cloak and then it hits the cloak, and then when a weapon hits
the cloak, and then like exactly,
the spores come out and spray you in the face, and you're like, oh no, and then like you have either like disadvantage to the next attack, or you take a bit of damage, or both.
Exactly,
that'll be very cool.
Both, yeah.
Like as a reaction.
And then you could turn its beak into an instrument that lets you do the stunning screech.
Yes, that's cool. Like a drum, and then you hit it on the head, and then it goes like.
Obviously, you could turn it. You could use its hide to make something, or in fact, the cloak made of its wings could also give you the magic resistance. Although that's a very powerful ability. I think I want to say the paladin, the green paladin, gets it at later levels, but I might be slightly misremembering.
The green paladin.
Yeah, the Oath of the Ancients.
Ah, yes, the green paladin. Yeah, that's I never heard anyone call it that before. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just thinking because it's like nature themed, like green.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, sorry. And then there's that spear we mentioned before that we might give to our Vrock boss.
Yeah. What would that spear have?
So we've got a couple of so one thing I kind of like we could do with it is we could have it that the spear is a massive tuning fork, so that when the Vrock uses its stunning screech, the range is extended. So that obviously affects the boss fight. And then in the player's hands, the spear is a tuning fork, so you can say bards can use it as an instrument for the purposes of initiating a spell focus, which is obviously handy because it lets them use a weapon and have an instrument in the same hand.
Yeah, that's like like the hunter's horn in Monster Hunter.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's like a big horn that's also a weapon. Like that's cool.
And then maybe like once per day, like you can touch an object with the fork and cast knock, so you can like unlock doors with it.
Yeah, that's cool. I was thinking maybe as another way of doing it. I remember you reading there that he likes to use the energy drain, the ancient Vrock. Yeah. Maybe you can, like, as a small little reference to that, have like an energy, like not exactly the 9th level spell energy drain, but some sort of health draining spear would be a fun little Easter egg to put in there.
Like a lifesteal spear, that could be cool.
Yeah. That's cool.
You could even and the thing about that is that it's very like, so what you could do is you could see like, oh, it's a spear and it deals like an extra like D6 necrotic damage, and like you gain that many temporary hit points. And so the benefit there is that like it's good on the Vrock obviously because it gives them temporary hit points, which means they'll die a little slower. But it's good on the party because it gives them temporary hit points. But the great thing about temporary hit points is because they never stack. You're like, well, the most you'll ever get from the spear is 6 temporary hit points, which is like half of a punch. Like later, in later levels, it's like that's enough to shrug off the flat damage of this enemy and not even the dice rolls that I'm going to do. So it's not like a huge deal. Like once if they're fighting a challenge 6 monster, it's not a huge deal, and it also feels good because like every time you hit, you also get health. Like, kind of.
Yeah. I get you.
That's a good idea. I like the idea that we incorporate we make it a combo weapon, so that, for example, the spear deals more damage to you if you are poisoned because the spores poison people. And then that's kind of cool because it like you could literally just say like when this weapon hits a poison creature, it deals an additional blah damage. And immediately, what's fun about a weapon like that when you give it to the party is like on its own it doesn't do anything. So the party have to like set up their own combination attacks basically, and that immediately puts the kind of strategic onus in their field, which is a great thing because it helps them think about like, well, this spear deals extra damage if we poison, so what do we have the poisons? Oh, we have this spell, but that spell deals less damage than my other spell, but then it sets up this attack, and like, is that better or worse? And like, you know what I mean? Like, so I like stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that could be cool if it was like, whenever you hit, it's a normal spear, and whenever you hit a creature who is poisoned, they suffer an additional D8 poison damage immediately or whatever.
Yeah. That sounds good to me. Can we wrap this up, Daniel?
Yes. I'm very happy to wrap it up right there.
Yes, because I am running out of time. I'm running out of time, Daniel.
Do you want me to start talking right now?
It's time for me to go.
Squirtle.
I'm dying. Squirtle, I'm dying. Do you guys remember in Pokemon, the episode of Pokemon where Ash was dying?
To Squirtle, I'm dying, Squirtle.
and then Squirtle's like, no.
And Squirtle uses his blood magic to stop it from happening. He uses his forbidden bloodline technique.
That was a weird episode. Anyway,
it was my favorite episode.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I gotta go, so we'll do a quick wrap. Sorry for the quick episode this time. But yeah, Daniel, go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay. Thank you so much for listening. As always, if you've enjoyed this, you can subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher or on Spotify, which a lot of people have found very useful. Instead, you can look us up on various podcasting apps, or you can come to our website, which is creatureclubpodcast.com. You can find the RSS feed there, as well as episodes whenever they get uploaded. We're on Twitter at creatureclubpod, and we have a Gmail, which is creatureclubpodcast@gmail.com. You can contact us on either of those. The Twitter is generally pretty good for posting when episodes are up, and the email is good if you want to send us, say, long form submissions or comments. As we've said in every episode, and we will say again, we are always looking for homebrews, be they monster, class, spell, or anything in between. We like to round them up into specials and then talk about them for a long time, which we have done once before. There's another one coming. Tim is on the way to having a new laptop, and once he has that, we will probably be releasing the next homebrew special. So you have that to look forward to. And that is everything.
Yep, that is everything. Thank you so much.
Mikey has a great new YouTube series called Screen to Table. It's very good. You should look it up. You should check it out. It's been linked on previous episodes, and we'll probably link it again in this one. Okay, I'm done.
That's okay. Thank you very much, Daniel, for the shout out. And I haven't had a new episode of that for a while because I've been very busy at work, but the next episode will be coming out very soon. I am excited for it. I have a bunch of ideas, but it'll be another game that I like. So, anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. The next episode will be The Last of the Demons.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes, that's right. The Last Demon. So be there, be square, and just enjoy it, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Once again, I have been Mikey.
No, Jesus, sorry. I was thinking, I hope we don't waste too much time, but then I did. Okay.
And then you did exactly that. Yeah. See ya.
Bye.
Stay
we have to
cool.
go. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.